am, Dr. Bolton. Okay. Mrs. Walters, can you hear us? I don't know if she can hear us, Dr. Bolton.
Yeah, I'm texting her.
Okay.
Mrs. Miller, could you unmute Mrs. Walters to see if that helps, please? Mrs. Walters, try now.
Mm.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Our chair is having audio situations, so we're trying to have her switch microphones.
Dr. Bolton, while we're waiting, are you going to put up the plans and such on the screen? I'm trying to figure out if I should try and look at them on my phone or if you're going to be sharing things.
Yeah, I'll just screen share the PowerPoint presentation so everyone will be able to see it.
Okay.
Thanks for checking. Mr. Kraus, she's still struggling. Should we go ahead and get started and then hopes that she can join?
Yeah, if that's okay, Dr. Bolton, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like to handle it or do you want me?
I certainly will. So good evening, everyone. Thank you. Again, I apologize. Hopefully Mrs. Walters will be able to join back in as the chair of the committee tonight until she's able to. I'll go ahead and run us through the meeting. Tonight, the 6:30 Activities Committee meeting for the Pembridge School District. So we'll call that meeting to order. The first item is public comment. According to policy number 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via the email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. As we've done through Zoom meetings, if you would like to make comment, if you would please unmute and say, I would like to make public comment. We'll have to catch the yellow box that lights up, and then we'll call you by the name on your box. So if you would like to make public comment at this time, if you would please unmute and say that you would like to make comment.
Dr. Bolton, I see Lisa is on.
Mrs. Walters, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
You're in.
Okay, so I can't hear through my computer. I can only hear through my phone, so.
And having them both go is giving us some pretty bad feedback.
And that's creating an echo with feedback. Yeah, unfortunately.
Can you give us a thumbs up if you can hear us, Mrs. Walters? But you can hear us through the phone. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and do public comment. We'll see you and you can listen through the phone. Okay, all right. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Okay, hearing none.
Yes.
Oh, Miss Belanda?
Yes. Hi.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Jessica. I have 2 daughters in Guth. I'm here because I support my children going back to school, at least full time, if not the second option where they have the hybrid option. But I want to impress upon whoever's listening that how we ended the school year during the peak of the pandemic is not conducive for learning for our children. As a full-time working mother in an ER, as a nurse, and also an educator at one of the local community colleges, I can tell you our kids are going to suffer by having this kind of a lackadaisical approach to their education as we did at the end of the school year, where we were kind of essentially just thrown into these Zooms where it was just to say hi to their classmates and then everything else was just put on to seesaw and we were left to kind of navigate that. I understand that they probably had time to prepare, but having that one-to-one with the teacher is lost. And I think that if we don't at least give them the opportunity to go back to school, we're going to lose another how many months of their education it's going to put them back. In regard to teachers that are concerned about COVID and about their health and their exposure, I understand that. As an emergency room nurse at Grandview Hospital, I understand that. But I go to work and there are measures that we take that can keep ourselves safe, like simply wearing a mask. That's been proven to keep us safe. So I think there are ways to get around that, and I think that we have to be careful that we're not just utilizing fear as a reason to keep our kids home. That's all.
Who the hell was that?
Okay, seeing no one else?
No. It's muted. I'd like to talk too.
Okay, I see that it says iPhone. Could you give us your name and your municipality, please?
My name's Renee Parvin. I live in Sellersville. My kids attend West Rock Hill Elementary, and I have a son at South and a daughter who's supposed to go to South. And I graduated from Penn Ridge. I'm also a nurse. I work at Grandview Hospital as well, and I do work in the emergency room, and I worked the whole entire time through the pandemic. This is also like a topic that as nurses, we talk about safety, and we totally understand that people are afraid. Masks are proven effective, face shields and hand washing. Not a single employee at Grandview has contracted COVID in the entire pandemic at this point. So I'm trying to touch on it as a nurse and as a working parent, and my husband's a full-time working parent, and I have 4 kids. My youngest is 4. She attends daycare at Grandview, and we were lucky enough that she was able to go there. This is something that I think about. It's like giving me almost like a stomach ulcer. I'm so worried about our kids. I was homeroom mom for my son every year that he was at West Rock Hill, did it while I was working. I want to be involved in their education. I want them in school full time. They literally look at me lost. There's crying, there's stressed. They don't want to be at home. They're scared. The teachers at West Rock Hill are marvelous. The teachers at South are marvelous. They've done so much for my kids, and I just don't want them to lose a whole nother year and just fall behind. I'm just worried about them. So really why I'm here is I'm trying to advocate for school in person.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no others, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the update for fall planning.
Stop it.
So,
Does all the parents want to say something? Maybe they didn't.
Mrs. Miller, if you could activate screen share so that I could get the opportunity, and I will put up the presentation. Thank you. Can I get a couple thumbs up that you can actually see the presentation that's there? Thank you, Mr. Kraus. So as you know, if you are a parent in the district, we've sent a survey out about 2 weeks ago that offered 3 plans. Plan A, which was a 5-day full return to the classroom. Plan B, which was called the hybrid model. And that was our hybrid model, and they look different across different districts in the county. Our hybrid model would be a synchronous full class instruction on Monday. And then the students would, from that class, would be split in half. Half of them would attend class live and in person on Tuesday and Thursday. The other half would attend in-class live Wednesday and Friday. Obviously, that would be 2 days of in-class instruction. The other 2 days would be asynchronous remote instruction provided by the teacher. The hybrid model is basically a full classroom. So it would be a teacher with a class of students, or at the secondary level, multiple teachers with a group of students. And that class would be split in half. And so half of them would be in school at any one time. Between the Monday and the 2 days in school, there would be actual live teaching with your teacher 3 of the 5 days during the school week. Plan C is a full remote instruction where all instruction would be provided in home and the students would not come to school. We closed the survey last Tuesday, and so I wanted to give you the results as of this morning. You'll see on the next slide that we're still following up with some families, but we currently have about 96% of our families who we have gotten the information from. You can see on the bottom line the totals, and that was what was reported in the email, where Plan A, full return to school, was selected by 52% of our families. You can see that it was a little higher at the elementary level, and then that number goes down as you get to high school. So 55 at elementary level, 47% at high school. Plan B at hybrid ended up being 31% district-wide, and that option went up as the students got older. So 27% at the elementary level, up to 40% at the high school level. Plan C, which was full remote, was the one that was the most consistent. It was 16%, but it did go down as the students got older. 18% at elementary, 17 at middle, 13 at high school. So that is where we are in terms of the parent survey results. As you saw in the survey, the hybrid cannot be guaranteed. The hybrid is the one that is the most difficult to staff. And so we needed to make sure that there are enough students as well as available teacher resources to be able to provide that. And so we did ask any of the families who picked hybrid to pick an alternate backup plan, either Plan A or Plan C. And that was 52% full return and 48% full remote. So almost 50-50 of the families who selected hybrid picked either a full return or full remote. And so it's about half the students that would be back and forth that way. What are our next steps over the next couple of weeks? These are the items that we'll be dealing with. We're currently following up with families who did not complete the survey, as well as cleaning the data. We did find that multiple families submitted multiple surveys for their students. And so in some cases, that was because they changed their minds. And I think in others, it was because of technology that they weren't sure they'd hit submit, so they tried it again. So we obviously are going through and getting rid of duplicates and then following up with families that did not. Our first priority is to look at the decisions on the availability of Plan B, the hybrid, so that we can communicate with families beginning this week and into next week, whether hybrid will be possible at their level or not. And that will be individual decisions. So it is possible that at some levels or some grade levels that we'll be able to do hybrid, and in others where we will not, depending on staffing. So that's our first priority. The building principals then are starting to work based on that data to schedule students and staff based on the 3 different plans or the ones that are available for them. We know that the communication of schedules will not be prior till the week prior to school. We do originally had that set for just the week prior to that, I believe it was the 20th that schedules would go live. They will not be available till that following week, which is the week of August 24th. And that's obviously because we basically are hand scheduling every student in the district starting over again as of the survey closing last week. So our building principals are doing all of that in a very tight window. And so the schedules themselves will not be available until that final week. Other next steps, obviously finalizing the health and safety plan. That draft was emailed out to the entire community and to our staff members and is currently available on our website. That will be next discussed next Monday, August 10th at our facilities committee. The facilities committee is the second committee next week. And so finance begins at 6:30. We are anticipating, based on the agenda, that facilities will begin approximately 8 p.m. And will be a discussion of the health and safety plan. We are fortunate that Dr. David Damsker, who is the director of the Bucks County Department of Health, who is between he and the State Department of Health are giving us the largest portion of our medical advice and recommendations. He's been kind enough to be on calls with us twice a week, the superintendents in Bucks and Montgomery County. He is willing to join us that evening. We'll be answering questions. There will be an email going out tomorrow soliciting those questions. We obviously have received a lot over this process, and so we have sent those to him, but we also are going to ask for additional questions. We do have a generic email address for any fall questions, fall 2020 planning at penridge.org, and we're going to ask any community member or staff member that has a question for Dr. Damsker to be able to submit those this week so that we can give him that list going into next week. So it has been a very, very busy time. The next piece will be that health and safety plan, which will, again, will be next Monday. There is a special board meeting that has been called for next Monday after the committee meetings. If it is appropriate, the board will consider for approval the health and safety plan at that time. And that obviously will have to do with the feedback we get and whether we feel as though we are to a point where we can finalize that plan for August 10th. To just remind you, that plan is required by the state. It is not required to be approved until students enter the school buildings. So we do technically have until the first day of school to approve that, although obviously we want to do that as soon as possible so we can communicate to everyone what those plans are for the fall. And that is the update on fall planning for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Do you want me to pick up the rest of the agenda, or are you comfortable?
No, I'm doing fine. I just had to get to my screen back where I could see the agenda and not my presentation. So the next portion is it is actually incorrectly labeled. It says first reading. First readings can only be done at full board meetings. And so this is simply a discussion of, if it is appropriate, the first reading will be next Monday at the special board meeting. But tonight we wanted to discuss and just present to you a possible policy, policy 815.1, which is on the live stream video on school property. So I've asked Dr. Durr if she would just give us an overview of that policy. Thank you, Dr. Durr.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Mrs. Miller, can I share my screen, please? You should be good. Okay, can everybody see that? Great, thank you. Okay, so this is a new policy. Just a little bit of background. We have been doing very limited, sort of on a case-by-case student basis of some live streaming prior to COVID. But now, obviously, we see the need for a formal policy, hence the need for this policy. It has been recommended and has been legally reviewed by Attorney Mike Miller. So I wanted to set that stage. Then for a little bit of ease here, I went through and highlighted some of the highlights that I just wanted to review. So first we have a definition of what live stream video is. And then there are 13 guidelines that I will just briefly summarize. And then if there are any questions at the end, I can take questions. So the first guideline addresses student-initiated use of live stream video. With this policy, the board would be prohibiting student-initiated use unless there is administrator written consent. The second guideline involves employee-initiated use of live stream video, and the board would be authorizing this use, again, if it's approved by a building administrator. Onto the second page, we have live stream video of classroom instruction / distance learning. And this policy that would, the board would authorize the use of live stream video, again, when it's approved. Students would be notified prior to the use of live stream. And we have a sort of a disclaimer in here. The intention is that, that the live stream only captures the teacher or the instructor or the therapist and their materials, but there are times that unintentionally other students could be captured. So we have that included here for information. And then prior to approving live stream, it would be determined if it could be recorded. The next guideline has to do with live stream of school district events that are open to the public. And the gist of this section is that we're notifying anybody, students, parents, employees, members of the public, that there should not be an expectation of privacy when attending a public event, because anybody could capture something and live stream it. There are times, however, that the district administrators could prohibit live streaming at specific events, and that would be on a case-by-case basis. And then in this section also, it would be prohibited any live streaming of anything that would be copyrighted material. Okay, on the next page, the next guideline addresses live stream video in lieu of homebound instruction. So there are times that we have students, because of probably a medical need, that the physician recommends homebound instruction. So we always consider that if we're going to provide homebound instruction. So this would be another option. In lieu of homebound instruction, we could consider live streaming. The next section has to do with telepresence robots, which do exist. So this policy is authorizing the use of telepresence robots. This would be outlined most likely in a student's IEP or Section 504 agreement. The next guideline has to do with live stream video for routine illnesses and absences. And we would not require any teacher or administrator to provide live stream instruction for routine illness or absence. There could be extenuating circumstances, and then it would be at the discretion of the teacher and the administrator. On this page then, we get to proper attire and code of conduct, and this is just saying that anytime a student is participating in academic instruction, that they are required to follow the district dress code and code of conduct. And then if the live stream is utilizing the district's internet connection, the acceptable use policy needs to be adhered to. And then finally, these are pretty self-explanatory. We address the use of personal devices, accommodations for disabilities, penalties if there is violation of this policy, and then the ability for us to develop administrative guidelines. So I know that was a lot. Are there any questions or discussion?
I'd like to highlight a couple things, if I may.
Okay.
First of all, I don't want anyone to read into this policy that we think that there is any replacement for a teacher in a classroom with his or her students, right? The purpose of this is not to have, one teacher teaching 400 students at home via a camera or a computer, right? Obviously, like Dr. Durst said, we have had individual, very rare occurrences of this happening over the last few years. But obviously March showed us that this is something that we need to at least be talking about and thinking about and providing some guidelines for. So that is why we're beginning this conversation around this policy, as well as having conversation and training for the teachers who this policy obviously would impact directly in their classroom. So I just wanted to say that in terms of what the purpose of this policy is versus what the purpose of this policy isn't. And we don't currently have any robots in the district, but we could, as she mentioned. So are there any other questions or comments from board members?
I have a question.
Is this Colin?
So is there any level of control? I guess we couldn't, I'm not necessarily like worried about it, but I'm just curious in these situations, is there any measure of control for like a delay or being able to cut off a live stream, you know, from another source besides wherever it's being initiated? I'm just, you know, it would be a rare occurrence that you would need to do something, but it was just a thought that came to mind.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to what a technology administrator, like whether that would be one of our building techs or, you know, somebody from Mrs. Miller's department, whether they have that capability or not, we would have to ask Mrs. Miller. And so we'll follow up with her and get you that answer.
Okay, thanks.
Can I actually ask a clarifying question from the first agenda item?
Please.
So you had mentioned that the schedules will go out the week before school starts. Will parents still know before that which of the 3 options they've gotten? So they may not know their kid's exact schedule, but they can at least plan for, you know, my kid's either hybrid or back full-time or cyber, right?
Yes, because what we have said is that A and C are the plans that we're going to work towards, and B is optional. And so obviously B is our first communication to be able to tell. And then if there's any change that we need to in terms of A and C, we obviously will have to communicate with those families directly. But yes, once we have B figured out, we ought to be able to communicate with all families in terms of the plan that they selected, in terms of where they are, yes.
And do you have an idea?
That will be before the 24th. In some of those conversations have already happened and will continue into next week.
So do you have a timeline for when you expect parents to have that decision in their laps? As far as which one of those 3 options their kids definitely got?
Yeah, we are very hopeful that Plan B, the hybrids, will be delineated by the end of next week. That's by far the most complicated option. And so once that is done, we feel like we could communicate. So I'm hopeful that it could be as soon as the end of next week. But to be a safe superintendent, I would say the beginning of the following week. And we'll have to communicate over the next couple of weeks regardless of that, just so people know in terms of the progress we're making.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions about live streaming from board members? Is there anyone from the committee who has a concern about moving that policy forward for first read if there is a special board meeting next Monday?
I think we should move it forward.
Okay, hearing none, then we will. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The last agenda item is a resolution. Mrs. Miller, I will need share screen again, if possible, please. Oh, looks like you were ready for me. Can I have thumbs up that you see the resolution? No. All right, let me try that again. I think I moved it, and that was my problem. How about now? Yes, all right, thank you. This resolution, if you're following school districts across Pennsylvania, is being adopted by almost every school district in Pennsylvania. We've learned a lot since March 13th. One of the things that we've learned as we were planning for the fall is that the school code, which is chapter 4, only currently allows for a school year to count if you are in school, right, what I call normal full classroom instruction, or you are fully remote. And so as the law is stated right now, anything that is a combination of hybrid or goes back and forth between those 2 models would not count towards the 180 days or the 990 or 900 hour requirements that are listed in chapter 4. And that is simply because when chapter 4 was written, nobody thought of this possibility. And so they did account for remote or cyber education, but they did not account for hybrid. And so all of the legal representation has said that what we should do is consider this resolution at a board meeting, the special board meeting on Monday. And basically what this resolution says is, as long as there is an emergency, so as long as the Department of Ed and the governor have declared an emergency, and COVID-19 has been declared an emergency, this allows under section 520.1 of the school code that allows the superintendent and the school board to certify that they are meeting the requirements, the minimum requirements of 180 days, 990 hours at the secondary level, 900 hours at the elementary level, and 990 hours at the secondary level, allows us to certify that through the development of a school calendar for all of those permutations. And so this resolution would allow us, regardless of what has to happen this year in terms of pivoting between cyber, hybrid, or full-in instruction, or any variation of those three, to certify for every one of our students that they have met the minimum requirement, which would allow them to move on to the next grade level, or in case of our seniors, to graduate at the end of the year, as long as everything else was successful. And so this is standard language that is provided by the Solicitors Association in the state for school districts to consider. Are there any questions from board members about this resolution? And just to be clear, it changes nothing in terms of our planning. This doesn't limit us or force us to do anything. It still allows for local control. At this point in terms of what our plans are for the fall. This just allows any of our plans to be certified that students are actually meeting the requirement of the state code. Again, hearing no dissension, our committee members okay with moving this forward to the next board meeting, whether it be the special board meeting on the 10th or the regular board meeting on the 24th. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Walters, rumor has it that you are back among the talking. And so I'm going to allow you to facilitate the final public comment unless there's anything else that you have for the agenda.
Yep, that's great. Thanks. Sorry about that. Restarting the computer does wonders. All right. So is there any public comment? If so, you can just unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Can you please state your name and municipality, please?
I'm Maggie Bialois. I live in Hilltown. I am also a teacher, and I just wanted to thank everyone. I know this is a lot to plan for. I think it's awesome that you gave everyone so many choices for going back to school. I just want to say that as a teacher, I know that it's important to have the kids in school, and socialization and all that is important. But the socialization, I don't think, is going to be where a lot of parents hope that it is because of all the precautions that are put in place. I think that we're not going to be able to last with the kids face-to-face in school. I think that there's going to be outbreaks with if not the students, then with the parents and the teachers. And I understand that people work and their children, they need their children to go to school, but I didn't get my master's degree to be daycare. I am there to teach your child, not to provide daycare for your child. So I know that that's very difficult, but we shouldn't be sending the kids back to school because people have to go to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment?
You have a comment?
Mr. King?
I have a comment. Yes, Dante King, Hilltown Township. I actually have two comments. First comment is, again, first of all, thank you all for your time today. Question I have for you, or more so for the committee, is the decision point. Right now, it seems like we're potentially offering all three. We're kind of going back and forth. I think we've heard from the community, which, you know, is great. I guess my question is to the committee is, make a decision. I mean, I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough that my wife and I are able to, if we need to stay at home with our children, we can. If I understand that there's parents that they have the option of going back to school, and I understand that as well. It is the beginning of August. My recommendation is, let's please make a decision so that we can plan either way. right now it seems like we have up until the first week of school, and then the decision can be made, and that just kind of puts us parents in a really bad situation. So to my recommendation is, whether it's for going back to school full time, a hybrid, or cyber, I'm okay with any of them. Just make a call. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if we do go to a hybrid or a cyber model, what is the school district's policy on providing technology to the children that are going to be participating in hybrid as well as cyber school? Thank you.
Ms. Walters, I know we normally respond at the end of public comment. Are you okay if I address that, because it might clear up some confusion from other ones? And I apologize that I was not clear. Mr. King, thank you for both questions. So the decision point is not one or the other or the third. We are unlikely to be in, unless we're forced by the state, we are unlikely to only have one model going on in our schools, which is why we asked people to have their selection. And so the only one that we did not, that we still have to work through because we weren't positive, was the Plan B, which is why those families are communicating first. As long as the board is comfortable with the health and safety plan, that plan then will be finalized next Monday. That is the purpose of that special board meeting, which means at that point we will finalize and say, here is exactly what we're doing. But we've begun communicating with families about their plan. Plans A and C are a little easier, and we do expect them to happen at all the levels. And so families who selected that, it is less of a concern. So we will move forward that communication. But the decision point will be that health and safety plan, which right now is scheduled for August 10th, because we want Dr. Damsker to speak into some of the medical considerations that a lot of parents and staff have asked about. The other thing about technology, yes, thanks to the board's facilitation and Mrs. Miller's department, we have been able to increase the technology. And so any student who will be doing remote learning, whether that be some or all, will be offered a device. K through 2, that will be iPads. 3 through 12, that will be a laptop. And so we will facilitate with those families if they need that. But yes, we will be able to do that for any student who's remote. Thank you, Mrs. Walters.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Yes, hello. May I please make a public comment?
Sure. Can you just state your name and municipality?
Sure. I'm Gail Grimm. I'm in Bedminster Township. My children attend Bedminster and North Middle School. First, I would like to I'm beyond thrilled that our children are given the option of going back to school this fall. And I do understand that with this, there's always the potential for transmission. And I think the facial masks is a great option because it provides our children with a great level of protection with covering both the eyes, nose, and mouth. So, but in the event that there is a transmission, what is the plan in regards to how the school will deal with any of the outbreaks?
Thank you. We follow up with comments after they're at the end of the meeting. So I will have Dr. Bolton either get back to you on that or answer that at the end. Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
And may I just make one more comment?
Sure.
I'm really hoping that the in-school is facilitated. I feel that the children are just engaged in a much higher level. I know that in particular, one of my coworkers, her son was a straight A student. And as soon as school started, from more of a remote learning standpoint, he just stopped working and did not actually turn in a single item. I just feel that it is really wonderful that Penridge is working so hard to get us back into the classroom. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Can you state your name and municipality?
Sure. My name is Colin Kaufman, and I'm in Percy Borough. I just wanted to say I'm kind of in an interesting perspective because I am literally coming at this from all angles. I'm an educator in the county. I work with special needs students. I also have a son who goes to Guth. He's going to be going into 2nd grade. And my son completely tanked this spring when we introduced what I do like to clarify as an educator was a crisis response to a very sudden change in how we were educating our students. It was by no means what anybody would hope virtual learning would continue to look like moving forward. That being said, and the fears as a parent that my son is not going to continue to do well if we move forward with virtual learning, being an educator and being in that position, I know that the teachers in this community have the ability, the heart, the compassion, the drive to do whatever they need to do to make the virtual learning, which is by far the safest way for our children to move forward from here on out until we have different numbers and things look different. Because my son also has various medical needs. So I have that other aspect of that to consider as well. I think where there's a lot of breakdown, we have a wonderful community. However, when we look at neighboring districts and what other school districts are planning to do, we don't live in a bubble. And there has to be some cohesive plan that protects all students, protects all teachers, protects special education students, protect students with 504 plans who have medical needs, and give teachers the credit that they deserve, that we are going to be able to make this the best and safest way for children to learn temporarily until we can return to the school building. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anybody else like to make a public comment?
Hello?
Hi, Tom, could you please state your name and municipality?
Thank you, Mrs. Walters. I'm Tom Moran from Dublin, and I'd like to thank the board and all their efforts and superintendent, all the work you're putting into this unprecedented situation. I'd like to echo the concerns brought up earlier about going back to a full classroom learning situation. It does appear as though this is escalating across the country and around us. As much as I would love to see the social and wonderful interaction that our students have when they can go full-time in the classroom, my concern is all it takes is one instance and it's just going to create a problem across the board. And when you talk about social understanding and getting children involved and how do you explain to a child that one of their classmates is sick or one of their classmates, God forbid, has died? I really think with everything going on that the better part of caution here is to think about the health of our children. I mean, it's not a situation that's going to last forever, hopefully. And I know other districts and other counties have adapted plans where they have a synchronous remote learning situation just for the first period and first marking period. And then you can reassess where we are come October in terms of what the community's like, what the nation's like, frankly. And maybe it would give us more of everybody would be on an equal footing. The students would have the same synchronous online instruction from our quality educators. And then we could see where the world is at that point. And it would eliminate the risk. I mean, one of my concerns about trying to run a full plan and a hybrid plan at the same time is how do you limit the social interaction? Masks are a great idea. Face shields, apparently not so much unless there's a mask involved also. So again, I just want to state the fact that I think remote learning is a great idea for the first period just to see where we are afterwards and then reassess. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment?
I would like to make a comment.
Hi, Mrs. Schmidt.
Hi, Mrs. Walters. Bethany Schmidt for Casey Borough. Thank you to
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're having some microphone breakup issues.
Okay, hang on, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you for trying something else. Yep.
All right, is this any better?
Much.
Okay, great. So Bethany Schwendy, Perksy Borough, 3 kids, 1 in middle school, 2 in elementary school. And I have a question concerning how services for special education students will be delivered, such as OT, PT, speech. I have 2 sons who receive services currently. We will likely be pulling out to homeschool this year due to health concerns and the fact that virtual learning is not the best fit for our family. And I have the privilege that we can somehow make that work, despite also being a teacher in another job. But their services would still be set to happen through the school building. So I didn't know if there was a policy for that, because that's community members coming in and out. If those services are going to be held for the most part virtually anyway. So that is my question to put forth. And once again, thank you very much. And please keep in mind the teachers and the staff health when you are making these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and comment. Anybody else have a comment?
Hi, Bill West, East Rock Hill. How are you all tonight?
Hello, Mr. West. What is your comment?
I would like to talk about, or let you think about just for a moment, that at the high school level, you're going to have thousands of students in the hallways all at the same time. If you stagger it, you're going to have students waiting somewhere in the hallways to try to get into a classroom with people passing them. And I know we hope that the students will keep their protective equipment on, but more than likely they'll be pulling it off and yelling to someone that they haven't seen in 6 months or 8 months, and getting together with people around this classroom or another classroom. And it just seems to me that the prudent thing would be to be able to cut down all of your class sizes in half with the hybrid system. And using the hybrid system, we could keep all our class sizes down to a minimum. We could, in fact, ensure CDC guidelines with 6-foot distancing. I know that's not the Bucks County idea, but keep it in place for at least a month or so just to see what happens. And I leave you with one parting thought. There are 14 of you. You're not meeting in the same room, yet we're going to put 28 or 30 kids in a room smaller than you normally meet in, and hope that they keep their protective equipment on. So I still feel that you shouldn't delineate the hybrid system just yet. I think it's a wonderful way to try to start. You get the socialization. Every student has equal opportunity to learning. Students that are home learning online may not have that. And many students that wanted the hybrid may say, I cannot send my student back under these circumstances. So I ask you to please reconsider the hybrid system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a public comment?
Yes, I do.
Hi, could you please state your name and is that Mr. Peisman?
Yes, it is.
Hello.
Hi, Matt Peitzman, Hilltown Township. I also have 2 students at Grass Elementary, and I work at the high school. I appreciate everybody's comments tonight, and I think we all want everyone just to go back to normal magically and all that stuff, including us parents and teachers. I'm not here to speak on behalf of other teachers or anything like that, but I will say this. There's a lot of people like myself who are really scared. All right. A lot of sleepless nights have started with this, and the thought, as Mr. West was just talking about with, you know, I I might directly interact with 100 kids a day at the high school, but then the kids in the hallway and, you know, it could be mid-hundreds to over 1,000 kids that I'm around during the day. And my coworkers, some of whom are cancer survivors, and like my family situation, I have my mom here who's in her 70s. You know, we all want to go back. That's why we chose this field. We love what we do, but there's a lot of us that are really scared about what's going on. So I'm not saying anybody's taking any decisions lightly, but please keep everyone in mind when you are thinking about this. You know, we want to be there to do the right thing for the students, and that involves us being there, not homesick or anything like that. So thank you, and I hope you view all sides as you decide moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment this evening?
I would like to say something.
Hi, could you please state your name and municipality?
Sure, my name is Elena Wert, East Rock Hill Township. I have a student going into middle school and a student at the high school and the technical school. My comment is more of a clarification on if all technically 4 models run, that would be 5 days in, hybrid A, hybrid B, and virtual. If those students would all be in the same classroom with the same teacher running all 4 schedules at the same time. It is my understanding that students may be permitted to kind of switch in and out of schedules based on need. And I was just wondering if you were going to delegate certain teachers to be virtual teachers, or if you are asking your teachers to be able to run all 4 types of schedules at the same time with their class loads of 20 to 25 to 30. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Is there any other public comment?
Yes, hello. Can I please make an additional public comment? This is Gail Grin.
I'm sorry, we only do one comment. You only are allowed to have one public comment. If you would like to email the school board with your comment, that would be great.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? Not seeing. I'm not seeing any. Okay. I think that concludes the activities meeting. Dr. Bolton, did you want to add anything before we log off?
Clarify a couple of the questions that were asked, and then can get back to the others, or receive additional. I just want to remind everyone on the call, first of all, thank you for coming out and listening and asking good questions. Want to remind you of that fall 2020 planning at penridge.org. Fall 2020 planning at penridge.org is an email that is monitored hourly to be able to both update the FAQ, to be able to respond to questions, but also to answer questions that people have directly. So if you're speaking to someone and they're like, who do I ask? You can always have them email me directly, first initial and last name, as well as building principals. So that they're your 3 best ways that if you've got questions that you didn't think of at 9:30 tonight, for you to be able to ask that. I want to remind people that there is an FAQ document online. So if you go to the district website, there's an FAQ document that has been updated a couple times as we've gotten themes. We're actually going to update again this week, which includes a response to the special ed question that was asked tonight. So that will be going up. But yes, all special ed students, regardless of their plan, their services will be met. They will still have a case manager. They will still have the access to resources, and those will be individual conversations because it obviously looks different depending on the plan and the school and the type of service. But regardless of the plan, all of the district student services will be met through the Pupil Services Department. There was a question around the transmission plan. I would direct everyone to the FAQ document. Dr. Damsker, who will be with us again next Monday, did answer a lot of the what if questions. So what if someone has symptoms in a classroom? What if someone tests positive in a classroom? What if those types of things that were being asked? And so I would not presume to speak for him since he is the medical expert, but would direct you there for that because that would answer the question that you have. And then the final question I think that I had written down was in terms of teachers teaching across multiple models. The plans A and plan B are unique. Those students will not be in the same classroom. Those students will not overlap in terms of a teacher having both of them at the same time. So it's not like an extra half of class will come in from that standpoint. And so from there, remote will look differently depending on the number of students and the needs of the students. And so obviously where possible, it will be a full dedicated teacher that will have a remote classroom. And so it could be 25 fourth graders that are home, and there is a teacher who takes care of those. Obviously, the secondary level with the number of classes, those permutations make it far more difficult to be able to have a dedicated teacher that does all of that. So there could be instances where there is some live streaming going on for a certain subject for certain students from that standpoint. So from the remote standpoint, there are lots of ways to get at remote, but plans A and plan B would be unique. Those students would not interact. All right. Thank you, Mrs. Walters.
Mrs. Walters?
Could I? Oh.
Yes, yes, Mr. Kraus, go ahead, and then we'll have.
No, let Mrs. Banis-Clemens go, please.
Mrs. Walters, I just wanted to clarify because we did get several emails, and one of the comments tonight was about us having our meetings virtually while we're talking about doing indoor, in-person, face-to-face schooling, and that is something that I had given a lot of thought to, the idea walk the walk, and I completely understand that, and people don't realize this and will when we have the next board meeting and approve executive session stuff, but we had a board retreat, so we all did meet in person recently, so there isn't a fear of us meeting in person and setting that example. But my concern was making sure that as many community members as possible are able to participate. And we all know that there's so many different perspectives out there as far as the safety aspects of, different scenarios. And I wouldn't want people to not engage in our meeting or not show up because they're concerned about, how many people are going to be there, how close they would be to those people. And so, when it's decision making, I want all of those perspectives to be represented. And so from my perspective, that's why I think for the community benefit, and we've certainly had much more community involvement while these meetings have been virtual, but I think it's important for us to be able to hear the feedback from all of the community members. And so for me, that's why I think the virtual meetings make more sense, more for the public than for us.
Thank you. Mr. Kraus?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to echo that to a point, Mrs. Banis-Clemens. We had at the high point here 295 people online, which is awesome. The community engagement, both our community and our staff who have joined us here tonight. But part of the reason that we can't meet in person has to do a little bit with the sunshine laws too. We can't have a group of more than 25 people. So 295 people, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Banis-Clemens. We have much more community engagement through this format. And I think it's important through this time that we get as much feedback as we can while we're making these decisions. So thank you all to the community, staff who have joined us. Thank you.
Just want to remind board members that we will take a 6-minute break and we will gather back on your different link for your executive session. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.